I think that healthy eating really involves the basics. I mean, it is the basics. If we go back to those wheels that we had when we were younger and making sure that you're incorporating, a balance of food groups. Now, of course, as we start to get older, as women in midlife, we know protein is important. But some of the basics are like lots of green vegetables, filling your plate with vegetables, staying away from processed foods when possible. We're busy people, and some of us have children and aging parents. So there may be some occasions we've got to have processed foods. But, when possible, eating plants, not necessarily being plant based or vegan, but making choices with foods as close to earth as we can get. And since I'm not someone who is necessarily all plant based or vegan, what that looks like for me is still very healthy choices within each food group. Eating healthy to me also it touches a little bit on what is sustainable.
Mm.
For instance, because to tell someone that say canned vegetables are not healthy, I prefer fresh, and then after that, I prefer frozen. But a healthy choice for someone who hasn't eaten any vegetables might be some canned vegetables.
Yes, good point.
So, it's really a matter of perspective and starting with some of the basics that we learned probably when we were possibly small, depending on upbringing or maybe even in school. That balance is key. And if that's the focus, and we accept some of the obvious that, eating chocolate chip cookies all the time, not all the time, isn't necessarily part of a healthy lifestyle. Now, not all the time. They have their place. But, going on a chocolate chip cookie diet, I think we all know that's not healthy. So some of it I really believe is common sense as far as what is healthy for each person individually, depending on the stage of life they find themselves in.
Right. I like your focus on sustainability and taking not necessarily to mean environmental, although that's good obviously, but to
Mhm.
mean something we can keep doing. It's a sustainable habit. That's a really good point.
Yes, yes. If you know going into something that you cannot see yourself doing this in 6 months or a year, really as a lifestyle coach, that's where the lifestyle coaching comes in. Why start it? Granted, I mean, you can have a protocol that's pretty strict and it may get you some immediate results. But, like you said, at this stage of your life, you know, loving to cook, that's not you. That's probably not going to change. Most of the women that I work with, it's about the same. We're not going to just forever give up certain foods. So why enter into a relationship, so to speak, with the strict dieting mentality of things that you can't do. So sustainability starting off is really, really key, which is why it's important to know each person's individual circumstance. And of course, we may adjust goals and even time frames, but at the
Right.
same time, at least you know that in a year, in 2 years, 5 years, I can still be doing this successfully.
Right. Right. Good point. Yeah. And it's not something that feels like a punishment and you hate doing it and all those other things.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You won't do it if it's like that. I mean, we look, been there, done that. I would do it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then that's it.
And that's it. And then we go the other way.
We go the other way. So it's just a vicious cycle that I really worked very hard to break in myself and to support others.
Yes, I love it. I think that is going to resonate with people for sure. So we get that. And by the way, if listeners haven't gone back and listened to the gut health episode, that of course I should know the episode number for, but I don't. I'll have to put that in the show notes. She talked about the top thing for gut health being to eat more vegetables. So there you go. You're right on the money.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, when we first talked about doing this, I surprised you a little bit because I wanted you to talk about cooking and healthy cooking done in an easy way. And I think you were a little surprised because you're not necessarily someone who feels like you're a complex cook who gets really into it, right?
Exactly.
But that's why you're the perfect person to talk
Um,
about this, because we want to make it easy. And I love some of the things that you've told me prior to this about what you do. So, first of all, well, I'm making a lot of background noise here. First of all, what are some key goals we should have when we're trying to figure out how to create healthy meals that are easy?
I'd say one of the easiest of the key goals is going to be finding ways to incorporate more vegetables. Because the thing with vegetables, especially green vegetables and cruciferous vegetables, is that they're so high in fiber that they fill you up. You can eat as much as you want practically. They're low in calories, high in fiber, low in carbs, and so it helps to fill you up. And of course, just the green vegetables, what it does as far as your vitamins and minerals and all that. So one of the goals for me is how can I add more vegetables to the plate?
Mm-hmm.
And with that goal, it is not always about replacing something else with vegetables. I know you and I talked a little bit about that too, that, I don't think carbs are evil by any means. But as you know, even though I'm not a great cook, I feel like endless ways to use cauliflower rice and
Yes.
spaghetti squash. And in doing that, I'm just adding more vegetables, and that really should be the goal. When I'm now there's a lot of, if you Google it, you talk to different coaches, dietitians, nutritionists, how many vegetables should you be eating? I really would love for you to have green vegetables with at least 3 meals a day, three of your, and then you've got your snacks. They can be for your snacks too, for that matter. But, fill your plate with vegetables. Have vegetables be the majority of what's on your plate. We don't have to measure necessarily, have it be the majority. And so that's the goal. So by having lots of vegetables, or I should say, that is the goal. The goal is to have as many vegetables as possible. And in doing that, you almost crowd out the things that may not be the healthiest choice.
I like that idea, crowding other things out. Yes. And I love spaghetti squash actually. And I'm going to have to investigate cauliflower rice a little bit more too,
Yes,
clearly.
yes, actually, even just cauliflower. I've done some amazing things with cauliflower and even have been able to trick my family where they had no idea that it was cauliflower. So,
Really?
yes, yes.
Okay, interesting. So, my next question was going to be basically what you just said. So, maybe give us some examples of how you've made changes to what your family's eating and still kept it simple and gotten them to eat it.
Okay. So what's been good is that my husband told me that growing up, because they had a garden, there were times that for dinner all they had was vegetables, vegetable plates. And so he wasn't a hard sell on having more vegetables. So we still will have, generally some type of meat with dinner, but we have quite a few vegetables. And one of the ways that I've incorporated them again is with things like spaghetti squash, cauliflower rice. So we probably have cauliflower, honestly, about 4 days a week,
Wow.
all in different forms. But in order to still keep things healthy, what I'll do, because did we really talk about the fact that I don't like to cook and I don't consider myself really a great cook? Okay, so I'll go maybe to Pinterest, or other, quote unquote healthy recipes, and just kind of tweak them to our liking because I know what my family likes. So recently I did shrimp scampi over spaghetti squash. Another time I did shrimp Alfredo over spaghetti squash. I added broccoli. So now we've got more than enough vegetables in this dish. And instead of making the full fat Alfredo sauce, I made my own sauce. Imagine that. And just cut back on some of the fat, but added flavor with garlic. Um,
Mm,
Another something that I've done before is actually boiled a head of cauliflower and put it in the blender. So we've had mashed potatoes. Now that was the one that tricked my son.
yes.
Use just a little bit of butter, lots of fresh garlic, and some chicken stock. So you've got your mashed potatoes. I saved some of that, added a little more milk. I saved it, refrigerated it. A couple days later, added a little more milk, and then added some Parmesan and got it to where it was almost like a sauce. And so I poured it over broccoli one day. Okay.
Oh
And
my
we ate a lot of
goodness.
broccoli. So it was like, they're going, what is this on this broccoli? And it was actually a sauce made from cauliflower. So
Wow.
I don't have these brilliant ideas. I really don't, because that's just not my thing. I was cooking dinner the other day, Cheryl, and it's like sauces are going up on the ceiling. I'm like, why is everything so messy? And I'm like, it's just because I don't like being in here doing this. Let's be real. But um, just thinking outside the box. And so I want to say this, that when I'm working with women, they don't come to me because I'm a nutritionist or a dietitian, and certainly not because I'm a chef. But one thing I think it's important, which is what I've done with my family, find out what your family likes. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that too. But finding out what they like, and then making some of those changes based on that. There is no real cookie cutter, which goes back to, what does healthy look like? So to tell a family that isn't eating any vegetables, that you must go to the market and buy all fresh vegetables and then fill up your kids' plates with veggies they don't like, that doesn't work. So
Right.
I know what we like, know how to prepare it. And that's actually how we've been able to have all these vegetables with every meal, where everybody's happy to.
And it sounds like you've been able to still make everything taste good.
Yes, yes. And so I season a lot. My husband really doesn't like salt at all. So you don't have to use a lot of salt and pepper. I really tend to use a lot of garlic and onions, fresh and powdered. And I've got a lot of herbs, different seasonings. I'm always trying something. I tried something about 2 weeks ago and it was not a hit at all. And I said it first. It was like something with the tastes didn't quite come together. And so I didn't eat it. They still ate it, but for the most part, you get a feel for what tastes good, because really I was a foodie in my old life, so I want the food to taste good. But the other thing that I felt it was important to share about making your food taste good is that there are a few different ingredients that, especially when it comes to cooking more ethnic meals, that may be a little higher in sugar, maybe have a little fat.
Mm.
And I see why so many dietitians, nutritionists, health coaches talk about eliminating sugar, like you should never have ketchup or barbecue sauce, or some of these things. And the reality is that if you're having these things in such small quantities, so for instance, we like a lot of Asian inspired meals, and they're requiring, say, a tablespoon of hoisin sauce, which is high in sugar, or a tablespoon of this, or something that it really isn't that consequential. And I mean that. I really don't believe it's that consequential, because again, we're going for what's sustainable. We're
Right.
not going for, let's do the bare minimum so we can get through this to get to some type of goal. And then now we're going to eat like this from now on and never have some of those flavors, some of which may even be tied to culture. In our family, we love ethnic foods, period, from all areas. And so sometimes what that means. And maybe I'm not always able to make my spaghetti sauce. Most times I do. But if I'm doing turkey meatballs and that's been a little bit labor intensive, that may be a day I don't want to make my sauce, and I may just use a jar, and it's okay.
And it's
So
okay.
that's how we make our food taste good, and especially since we're, not eating triple portions in this house, then some recipes that I see, whatever they call for, I'll use it. And that way I
Uh-huh.
haven't compromised the flavor, because remember, on the other side, we're having tons of vegetables. I'll say it cancels it out.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot because if it doesn't taste good, then what are we doing, right? Like we're not going to enjoy it. We're not going to want to eat it. Now it feels like all the work was not for anything.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I like that. I like that.